We're not there yet. All right. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here for Recycling on Campus Simplified. It's been such a pleasure to put this together as part of the IUPUI Sustain Virtual Earth Month. So thank you for being here and hope you guys are all staying well and safe. You all know me. I'm Miranda Frausto. I'm the Sustainable Waste Management Intern. So I do a lot of work with waste reduction and diversion and engagement with students, staff, and faculty about the importance and how to do so effectively. So that's the main topic of discussion for today. That's the main, one of the biggest things I do is working with students, staff, and faculty about how to properly recycle. And it's one of the biggest questions I always get. So I'll just dive right in. So I'm going to start off with section 1, which is very general about trash and recycling in general, the importance, waste diversion and reduction in general, the current state of recycling, and then funnel it down to IUPUI specifically and how to recycle on campus. Okay, so the issue with trash in our society, especially in the US, we have 2 standard ways to dispose of our waste. We tend to use the trash, which is the main one. We produce products, we consume them, and then we dispose of them with little thought as to what the end of life looks like. But for our trash products, that tends to be the landfill or the incinerator. So it's definitely something we try to avoid as much as possible in sustainability. And one way to divert that waste is through recycling. Yeah, so it's a great way to divert waste, but the infrastructure is not necessarily there all yet to really make sure that we're using that capability to the maximum extent. For example, in Indianapolis, our recycling rate is 7%. So of all the waste produced in Indianapolis, 93% of it ends up incinerated or in a landfill. But there's a lot of reasons contributing to that. But at IUPUI, we want to make sure we're playing our part in the community to make sure we're diverting as much waste as possible and reducing that and reducing our impact on the environment and our community. So the current state of recycling, I just wanted to make sure we got the full picture of recycling. There are some issues with the current situation in the destabilized market. For example, a lot of times developing countries like the US would send our recyclables to China and Malaysia, for example, for them to actually do the recycling part of everything. But they started to notice that almost everything we were sending them was very heavily contaminated, sometimes with even hazardous materials. So it really was just us sending them our trash and them having to figure out what to do with it, whether it was like having to burn it or put it in their own landfills. So China stopped accepting it altogether, and countries like Malaysia started sending us our waste back because the recyclables we were sending them, they couldn't use it. And it was putting a strain on their resources and, the environmental health and public health concerns that come with landfilling and burning all of that waste. So a big part of that contributing is the lower quality of materials through single stream. So you may remember back in the day, recycling used to be separated like paper, cardboard, different things like that, but that was tended to be a barrier for people to recycle. So we switched to single stream, which drastically improved our recycling rates, but that also led to more issues with contamination and also wish cycling. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, wish cycling is feeling guilty about putting something in the trash and hoping it's recyclable and putting it in the recycling, but it's actually worse for the environment to do so. And I learned that the hard way. I used to be a wish cycler, but it puts more strain on the environment to have to send it to the recyclers just for them to have to send it to the landfill or the incinerator anyway. So it's best to just know what to recycle. And if you really don't know, the old saying, when in doubt, throw it out, to make sure we're giving our recycling industry the most quality products we can. And an interesting fact I learned recently is that on average, about 25% of the material recycled is too contaminated to go anywhere but the landfill. So a fourth of all the things that I or you create and hoping that it is recycled is likely contaminated and can't be used. So it's really important to make sure that we're doing our part to reduce our waste, but when we do try to divert it, make sure we're doing so in the right way. And just by being here, you're trying to learn. So that's great. So to kind of switch it back into the positives of recycling, there are tons of positives, all under the realm of the sustainability pillars of the social, economic, and environmental well-being. The social, green job creation, and sustainability. We love green jobs, and in Indiana, actually, the recycling industry employs 10 times as many people as the trash industry does. So it's really a booming market, even here in the Hoosier State. And I put reduces land strain as a social consideration because we often don't think about the communities that have these landfills and incinerators in their backyard. These communities tend to be communities of color and lower income, and they're facing the, the public health and injustice that has. So reducing our reliance on landfills and incinerators in hopes that one day we don't have to pose that threat to our communities anymore. Economic, promoting a circular economy, that's really a big thing in sustainability now. On the diagram to the right, you can see right now we really operate on a linear economy model. So we're producing, we're consuming, and we're disposing with little thought to the end of life and how to be creative with the products that we could really reuse and repurpose. Whereas the circular economy, its focus is, reinvigorating our community, redistributing our resources, reusing materials, and really lowering our impact as much as possible. So that's really important in sustainability, and recycling plays a big part in that. And utilizing our domestic resources, so promoting our national businesses by using the resources and supplies already here at home. And then the environmental list of benefits of recycling could go on, but the main ones are conserving resources and energy and minimizing greenhouse gas emissions. So the solutions, so I mentioned some issues, but the solutions are there for sure. The most important being, of course, to reduce our waste first and then divert. So a lot of people think there are only 3 R's of waste: reduce, reuse, recycle, but there's actually 6. You can see on the diagram to the right, they're actually in order of preference as well. So first we want to rethink and go through that whole list until we recycle. So recycling is really important, but it's our last resort. We want to make sure we're meeting all the other 5 stipulations first before we create, recycling waste. And then of course we want to consider accessibility. So one of the reasons cited for our low recycling rate in Indianapolis was it not being accessible to people. So in Indianapolis, you have to pay to recycle. So that places a burden on our community and really decentivizes people from doing so, and also assumes that people always have the financial capability to do so. So restructuring our infrastructure and providing more initiatives and engagement to make sure that people have the ability to do so is really important. And then of course, proper sorting, which is what this webinar is all about, making sure that we're providing what we do divert is quality material that can be recycled into new materials for reuse. Okay, so now specifically to IUPUI, we started recycling in 2013. To the graph on the bottom right, you can see our data from 2015 on of our recycling rate. So an average of about 17% since 2015. So our waste diversion goal on campus is actually 40% by 2035. So we still have a ways to go before meeting that, but we have a lot of initiatives in place that we're really passionate about and always looking to improve and see what more we can do to get that number up. Some examples are various signages, marketing, educational campaigns, waste audits to make sure we have the, we're, combining the visual aspect of waste and, its end of life and how much we actually generate on campus. Desk side recycling, the picture on the top right is one of the desk side recycling receptacles used on campus for staff and faculty. It also depicts kind of the proportions of what should be recycled in an office setting. So the majority of things you use in the office should be recycled, which is why the black trash bin is so much smaller. We have indoor-only waste bins. We have waste stations all around campus to put the recycling and trash together. And in the case of our food services in the back of house, we also have recycling, trash, and compost to really increase our diversion rates that way, but that's only back of house right now. And then just wanted to give a shout out to our partners, Chartwell's, our food services provider, and Campus Facility Services, because we couldn't do sustainable waste management without their support. So we're all working together to see how we can meet our 40% diversion rate by 2035. All right, so how you can help. So just by being here, you're already doing your part, making sure that you're educated and learning everything there is to know about recycling on campus. The most important thing for everyone to do is reduce our waste. It does sound daunting, but it's just something, at least in my life, I've just tried to increment. Like, I don't think there's just like one day where you magically, you know, are able to reduce all your waste and be zero waste. I think it's a process, and just by doing your part and doing your best and seeing, you know, how you can in your own life is really all we can ask, that everyone does their part in sustainability imperfectly. That's always my mantra. And then of the waste we do produce, making sure we're properly diverting it. So we cannot meet our campus waste diversion rate without your support is the most important thing. All right, so how to recycle. So this is actually straight from our recycling pocket guide made by our wonderful marketing director, Estrella. So it really visualizes the products that you see on campus to what bin they should go into. A lot of these products probably look familiar, such as aluminum, paper cups, and things like that. Plastics numbers 1 through 7. I know plastics tends to be a tricky topic in terms of recycling, but yeah, if it has a number on it and it's plastic, it's recyclable. Cardboard jugs, cans and other metals, pizza boxes, paper and cardboard, shredded paper, and glass. And then what to trash. So again, from our recycling pocket guide, that's available on the IUPUI sustainability website. That would be paper towels and tissue, packaging materials, food wrappers, plastic cutlery, food waste, coffee pods, plastic bags, unless you keep it to take to your grocery store later on, plastic straws, and foam packaging. So if you live in the Indianapolis area and Raise is already your waste hauler, Raise is the IUPUI waste hauler, so our rules tend to be the same. So you can see this is straight from the Raise website. The same things go in the recycling for them as well. So glass bottles and jars, newspapers, cardboard, cans, cartons, and plastics 1 through 7. And they have a variety of different unacceptable items on the right. So it's important to remember that each waste hauler is different. What is recyclable through Raise and on campus may be different for you if you live in a different community with a different hauler. All right, so through my time in my internship, I've learned a lot about what confuses people and picked up a couple of tricks on the way. The one that is most exciting to share because it makes it so much easier is the difference between hard versus soft plastics. So the question is, can you squeeze it in your hand with ease? So you can see on the top right, we have like the container berries go into, like that hard plastic, and then like milk jugs. If you try to visualize squeezing it in your hand, it's probably quite difficult and may even hurt. So hard plastics like that are recyclable. And then you go into soft plastics. So this is like straws, chip bags, food wrappers, saran wrap, any plastic that you can easily squeeze in your hand like that tends to go in the trash. So we found that that's helped a lot, especially with training new employees through our food services program. So that's something I always try to share with people who are confused, and that does tend to make a big difference instead of having to look for the number on all the plastics that you're trying to recycle. The exception to this rule that I found is plastic cutlery. Although it is hard and would probably hurt your hand trying to squeeze it, it is very small, and you know, recycling at the end of the day is still a business trying to make a profit, and it can be really expensive for them to take products like plastic cutlery and straws, especially since they tend to fall through the cracks of their machinery. So it's best to put plastic cutlery and straws and things like that in the trash. And then a question we always get as well is the amount of food residue that is okay. So it really should be a small amount. It's preferable if you're able to rinse it out, but we understand that's not always possible. So it's really important to use your discretion. It doesn't have to be sparkling clean, but only a little bit is preferable. So for example, a pizza box with filled with cheese and pepperoni and grease, it's probably, you probably want to put that in the trash. But if it's a pizza box with just a little bit of grease, it should be okay to recycle. But if you really are in doubt, throw it out. So we always want to also visualize and combine what you see on campus with what bin it goes into. So this is straight from Amber's wonderful Kahoot. So you can see on the left, that's recyclable materials, and on the right, those are trash materials. Those colors, because those are the colors of our bins. Blue is recycling and black is for trash. And so, you know, aluminum pans, coffee cups, Panda Express takeout boxes, you know, cardboard and paper, those are all recyclable. Whereas like plastic bags, straws, plastic cutlery, the Chick-fil-A sandwich bags are a common confusing item because they're actually lined with plastic sort of material on the inside, so they can't be recycled. But yeah, and I think I'm on to the quiz portion, which is to see if I did a good job of explaining what goes into what. So I'm gonna pull up my poll. All right. So I think there are 5 questions here about what goes into what bin. And I'm going to see if you guys know. I'm sure most of you guys already knew though, but we'll see. All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds here. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm sharing the results, so hopefully you guys will be able to see. Okay, so for the first one, food wrappers such as chip bags or granola bar wrappers. Yes, those are both, yeah, those all go in the trash, so good there. Pizza box with little grease. Yeah, so I would say recycling for that just because it was a little grease, but if it was a lot, I would put it in the trash for sure. Straws and plastic cutlery, yes, trash, everyone got that one. Chick-fil-A sandwich bag and polystyrene cup, trash, good. Plastics numbers 1 through 7, recycle, and then which of the following is not one of the 6 R's of waste? It was retrofit. Rethink is actually the first one, so the most important one to do, and then reduce and repair are also spread out throughout that. Yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Hold on, there we go. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question, Miranda. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Christina's first.
Oh, what? I didn't see, oh.
In the chat box.
Oh, the chat box. Okay. Wait, what? Hold on. I don't know how I can see the chat box when I'm sharing my screen.
You might have to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, wait, no, here it is. Sorry.
Okay, got it.
Okay, sorry. Can you talk about rethink? Okay, rethinking is the most important because the most important thing is that we're rethinking our current model, which is the linear model in which we really just like produce products, consume them for like very little amounts of time and then dispose of them without little thought. So we really want to make sure we're just rethinking the whole thing and applying new creative ideas like circular economy, where we're really starting from square one and seeing how we can really limit our impact on the environment and our communities, and seeing what solutions we're able to come up with that way. Okay, and then I love the questions. All right, what is your favorite part about being the sustainable waste intern? I really enjoyed that people are often off-put, I guess, by what I do. Like, I know my family thinks it's kind of like funny that I'm like digging through trash, but once you explain like how important it is and the impact that our waste, consumer habits and our waste generation has, it really does mark people. So I really enjoyed that part about being the waste intern. Just making sure people realize like it is a big deal, and putting all of this together, like the linear model and diverting waste, everything that goes into that. Do you know about any efforts to standardize recycling across municipalities and private companies? I do not. Like I mentioned, recycling is a business, so I guess every business does it their own way. I don't know if anyone else at the office has any thoughts on that, but that's not something I know of to be in the works.
I know the plastics industry has been talking about like trying to land on at least a handful of the same plastics, because plastics 1 through 7, well, yeah, there are 7 different types of plastics, but then within each one of those numbers, there are different subtypes of plastics. So that makes it hard for recyclers to be able to, you know, sort properly and find end markets. So I know the plastic market's been trying to land on some sort of standardization, even if it's, you know, a handful, to get it down from the many that they have to just a handful.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Jessica. Okay, next question. If you could give people one piece of advice about reducing waste, what would it be? I always say start small. It seems really daunting, like if you're like going from normal to suddenly wanting to be zero waste and like Lauren Singer and like have everything in a mason jar. Like that's not how it works. It's a whole process, you know, every day cut out, or not every day, but as much as you can, just take it slow. Gradually, you know, take items out of your normal habits, and then you'll start to think about it more instinctively and it won't be as much of a burden. And then what organizations in Indianapolis or Indiana can folks look to for recycling resources? So the Recycling Pocket Guide is great for the IUPUI campus, going to your waste hauler in particular. And then of course, the Indiana Recycling Coalition is the main leader in waste reduction and diversion efforts in Indiana. So I definitely check them out. And they have a conference coming up, I think, too. So yeah, I think I answered all the questions. Yes, yes. All right, anything else? Because if not, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Amber. Oh, something else. Oh, thanks, Jessica. Yeah, but oh. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, that's really everything. So thanks again for being here, and I'll see you guys around. Thanks again.